Hi, greetings everyone. Ari here, and today is a very special day because today I'm going to be taking a look at something a little bit interesting today. Because today I'm going to be starting a brand new series of videos called Supernatural Summer, in which I will be reviewing every single episode of Supernatural in the month of July. And today we're going to be starting off with the very first episode of season 1, the one that started it all, the pilot episode. So, let's take a look at it. Beginning in Lawrence, Kansas on November 2nd, 1983, Dean Winchester, a 4-year-old boy, says goodnight to his baby brother Sam Winchester, along with his mom and dad. Mary Winchester is lying in bed when she hears Sam crying on the baby phone. She goes to investigate and sees someone standing over Sam's cot. She assumes it's her husband, John. However, she sees the lamp flickering and goes downstairs and realizes John is actually asleep in his chair by the TV. She runs back to Sam's room. John Winchester is woken by her scream and runs to Sam's bedroom, but the baby is alone. Blood spatters from above on his hand, and Mr. Winchester looks up to see his wife pinned to the ceiling by some unknown entity. Her body bursts into flames, and the horrified father grabs Sam and gives him to Dean. He orders Dean to take Sam outside as fast as he can, then rushes back to try to save his wife. He's too late, however, and the flames completely consume the room, forcing him to flee the house. Sam's room explodes moments later. Anyway, moving to Stanford University, Sam is now grown up and going to a Halloween party with his girlfriend, Jessica Moore. He talks about an interview he has on Monday for law school and that his family doesn't know because he's not close to them. Later that night, Sam is in bed with Jess when he hears someone break in. He fights the shadowy intruder until he realizes it's Dean, who is 26 years old now, his older brother. They haven't seen each other for 2 years. Dean explains he needs Sam's help to find their dad because he's missing after going on a hunting trip. The pair steps outside to talk and discuss the family obsession to find what killed their mom. Sam is reluctant to continue the crusade. He wants a normal life, but he agrees to help Dean find their dad. Sam asks what their dad was hunting, and Dean opens his car trunk and shows newspaper clips. He explains men are vanishing from their cars on Centennial Highway. 10 are missing over the past 20 years, and it's happening more. Dean plays him a voicemail from their dad, saying something big is about to happen and they're all in danger. And it also has the EVP on, but Dean has cleared it up to hear the hidden message. I can never go home. Sam reminds Dean if he goes, he has to be back by Monday for his law school interview. Back inside, Jess finds Sam packing and makes an excuse that he's hunting deer with a few guys that got carried away. He's going just to bring him back. Jess reminds him of the interview and worries what's going on. Meanwhile, in Jericho, California, at night, a teenager is driving down the road when he sees a woman in white standing alone in the dark. He pulls over and she gets in. She asks seductively, teasing the guy and asking him to go home with her. He says hell yes and heads where she directs him. When they arrive, the house is derelict and she tells him I can never go home before vanishing. He gets out and looks around, but gets spooked and jumps back in his car and drives away. When he looks in the rear view, she's in the back and he freaks, crashing through a barrier onto a bridge. The car stops and Troy screams and blood spatter in the windshield. Ugh. Anyway, at a garage somewhere the next morning, Dean and Sam will stop for gas and Sam accuses Dean and their dad of credit card scams to pay for their hunting. Dean doesn't deny it. Sam then tells Dean he needs a better selection of music in his car, to which Dean replies, House rules, Sammy. Driver picks the music, shotgun shuts his cake hole. They drive off and they pass the sign for Jericho. Ahead, they see the bridge where the guy's car crashed the night before and lots of cop cars. Dean pulls up and takes out a fake ID, and the two brothers question the cops posing as U.S. Marshals. The cop says he knew the latest victim named Troy, and that his girlfriend is putting up missing posters, but they have no lead to his whereabouts. In downtown, Dean and Sam find Amy, the policeman's daughter and Troy's girlfriend, and tell her they're his uncles and they're looking for him too. They go to a diner and she explains he last spoke on his cell from his car. Rachel, Amy's friend, is there too, and brings up a local legend about a girl who died on Centennial Highway whose ghost hitchhikes and the driver who has picked her up disappears. Ugh. Later, Dean and Sam search the net for news items concerning deaths on Centennial. They find an article about a woman who committed suicide after 2 kids drowned mysteriously. It seems Constance Welch jumped from a local bridge back in 1981, the same bridge where Troy's car was found. Anyway, on the bridge that night, Dean and Sam go to check out the scene where Constance died. They talk about more family stuff, and Dean gets upset with Sam for not even remembering his mom. Suddenly, they spot a ghostly woman in white jump from the bridge, and a few minutes later, Dean's car starts on its own and tries to knock them down. The brothers run for it, and Dean ends up diving off the bridge. He survives, but gets pretty muddy. Anyway. Okay. At the hotel, Dean and Sam book into the same hotel their dad was in and check out his room. There was a salt circle in front of the door, so John tried to keep something out. He also left all his stuff in the room. There are pictures stuck to the walls, and Sam notices their dad solved the puzzle. The killer's spook, Constance Welch, is a woman in white. Dean says Dad would have destroyed the corpse, and Sam says maybe the ghost has another weakness. Dean says Dad would still have dug her up, so they decide to talk to the dead woman's husband to find out where she's buried. First, Dean decides to get cleaned up and go for food. Sam calls Jessica. Outside the hotel, Dean's going for food when the cops arrest him for impersonating a U.S. Marshal. He does manage to call Sam first, warning him to run for it. At the sheriff's office, Dean gets interrogated and is told he is a suspect in the men's disappearances. The sheriff throws Dean's dad's diary and asks him what the numbers in it mean. Dean seems surprised to see them. At Constance's husband's home, Sam visits Mr. Joseph Welch and asks if John was here. Mr. Welch says that John was there 3 or 4 days ago. Sam also asks him where Constance is buried and what happened back in 1981. Constance was buried at their old house. Sam fathoms out Joseph was unfaithful and suggests temporary insanity. Constance killed her kids and herself when she found out, thus becoming a woman in white. She now kills unfaithful men on the highway. Joseph asks Sam to leave. Back at the sheriff's office, the sheriff's interrogation of Dean is interrupted by an emergency call, and he leaves Dean cuffed to the desk. Dean picks the cuff's locks with a paperclip and escapes. Nice. Outside, Dean calls Sam, who is on his way to the old Welch house where Constance is buried. Dean says he knows Sam made the fake call to the sheriff to distract him. Dean says Dad left his journal, though he never goes anywhere without it. He also says the numbers in their dad's diary are coordinates and their dad has left Jericho to go there. Before they can discuss more, the woman in white appears in front of Sam's car and he drives right through her. He yells, and Dean knows something is wrong. The next minute, the woman in white is in the car with Sam, asking to be taken home. When he refuses, she takes control of the car and drives it on its own. Ugh. Anyway, at the old Welch house, the car stops and Constance says she can never go home. Sam figures she's too scared to enter. Constance jumps on Sam, intent on making him unfaithful, but he refuses to give in to her seduction. She starts to hurt him and she transforms into real grotesque features as Sam screams. Then, Dean comes to the rescue, shooting at the spook. The distraction gives Sam enough time to drive the car straight into the house, taking Constance's spirit with him. Dean runs in and pulls Sam from the car, but Constance pins them down with a desk. It looks like their goose is cooked, but Constance's dead kids show up, just as Sam had hoped when he drove the car into the house. Constance was too scared to face her children because of the guilt of what she did. The kids take their mom's spirit back with them to the netherworld, and all 3 apparitions vanish into a pool of water on the floor. Dean and Sam push free and get in their car. On the way back, they figure out their dad is in a place called Blackwater Ridge, but Sam says he isn't going. He's going back to Stanford for his interview. Anyway, at Stanford University, Sam seems happy to be home and smiles at the cookies lying on the table. He finds a note, "Missed you, love you." Sounds coming from the shower and makes him feel Jessica's probably home. He comfortably lies down, but blood splatters on him. He was horrified to see Jessica pinned to the ceiling in the same way as his mother. She bursts into flames, and Dean appears at the right moment and rescues Sam. As the fire is doused by the fire engines, Dean and Sam pack their stuff into the car, and Sam ends by saying, "We got work to do." Yeah. So anyway, let's take a look at some continuities right in this episode. This is the first appearance of Azazel, Constance Welch, Dean Winchester, Jessica Moore, John Winchester, Mary Winchester, and Sam Winchester. And now let's take a look at some trivia surrounding this episode. Multiple changes to the final episode script were made prior to the show's airing. John and Mary were first written as being a car crash caused by a demon where she doesn't survive. In the earliest drafts of the episode script, Mary and John's last name were Harrison instead of Winchester. John's first name was going to be Jack. Originally, Sam and Dean were to be raised by their aunt and uncle without knowledge of the supernatural. This element was dropped in favor of the boys being raised as hunters, as the showrunners felt the original pilot in which Dean had to convince Sam the supernatural was real was too awkward. The original plan is shooting the bridge scene where the boys jump off, while Justin and Jared were planned to go into the river. However, there was costume error and they only had enough for one of them to fall in, accidentally adding more humor to the episode. The streets used are the names of streets from Mayor Kripke's hometown of Toledo, Ohio. Sam's comment suggests his father is an alcoholic, or at least habitually heavy drinker. This is mentioned several other times in the series. Bobby Singer, another father figure for the brothers, is also shown to be somewhat of an alcoholic. The scene on the bridge where the Impala suddenly starts by itself is remarkably similar to a scene in the pilot episode of The X-Files, where protagonist Mulder and Scully exit their car after it dies and turns itself back on a few moments later. Sam's life story shows many similarities to Tim Jensen, the lead character of Boogeyman, also written by Eric Kripke. Both characters are haunted by a supernatural past and a creature that took both the parent and, by the time the credits roll, their blonde live-in girlfriends named Jessica. Winchester, the brother's last name, is also the name of a well-known rifle manufacturer called Winchester Repeating Arms Company. The heiress to the rifle fortune, Sarah Winchester, built a house in San Jose. She was convinced Spear would kill her if she completed construction of her California home. Sarah used her fortune to continue uninterrupted, round-the-clock construction on it for 38 consecutive years. Since her death, the sprawling Winchester Mystery House has become a popular tourist attraction, known for its many staircases and corridors leading nowhere. A sprawling maze, and considered to be haunted by the ghosts of all the people killed with Winchester rifles. Their last name being used in reference to the rifle was only brought up once in the entire series. When Dean asks Sam to help him locate their missing father, he claims not to have spoken to Sam in 2 years. Although Sam has attended Standard for almost 4 full years, suggesting the brothers had some degree of contact between Sam's leaving for school and the events of the episode. Another interpretation is that Sam completed the first 2 years of his undergraduate study in a community college or online school. Then, when he was ready to leave the nest, he got to Stanford to complete the second 2 years of his degree. And now let's take a look at some errors as well. At 19 minutes and 6 seconds, in the background of the window, a flat terrain can be seen just as the brothers park. A hill with trees beside the road can be seen. When Mary's pinned to the ceiling, her blood drips on Sam. Yet when John sees her body and falls down screaming, he looks in another direction that will make it impossible for Mary's blood to drip on Sam. When Sam criticizes Dean's choice in music, Dean takes a Metallica tape off of Sam and he puts a cassette in the stereo, but instead of Metallica playing, either Back in Black by AC/DC or Gift to the World by Loveless starts playing, depending on the version. Dean shoots Constance and she dissipates, but he seems to shoot her with regular bullets. In the scene in which Dean gets arrested, his collar jumps up and down. The sign on the door handle in the motel room gets stuck on the door frame as Dean leaves, but is straight a moment later as the cop is walking to the door. John leaves Dean a note with the coordinates 35 and 111, presuming meaning 35 degrees north latitude, 111 degrees west longitude. Sam reads a map that says the place is in Colorado. In fact, these coordinates are in Arizona, very close to Meteor Crater. The nearest town is Winslow. Fire engines in Lawrence, Kansas during the 1980s were painted lime green, not red. In Sam's place at college is a photograph of Mary and John, the same one that was on the mantel in the house that burned to the ground 22 years earlier. It would be impossible for that same photograph to still exist since all the possessions were destroyed in the fire. That is kind of interesting, isn't it? So overall, as the beginning to this amazing show, I think it's just a really great pilot episode, and it's just really great. And I highly recommend you check it out if you've never seen a single episode of the show. So, yeah. So, overall, I give the pilot episode of Supernatural 4 out of 5 Angel Blades. Well, anyway, tune in next time as we take a look at Wendigo. So, until then, carry on, my wayward sons and daughters.